It is October 13th, 2023. This is Alan Zundell, the host of Political Dharma, and I welcome you to the show once again. The topic of today's show is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s announcement that he'll be running as an independent candidate rather than running in the Democratic primaries in his attempt to seek the American presidency. I'm going to look at a couple of clips from his announcement speech last Monday, and then add a couple of his campaign ads to assess the themes that he is presenting for his campaign, and then discuss how well I think he'll do in this process, especially whether I think he's worth supporting in his run for the presidency. At the end, I'll have a few remarks about Cornel West's campaign as an independent as well, contrasted to RFK's campaign, and then just a few final words about the conflict in the Middle East, which of course has been the big story this week in the news. But first, let me get into Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign announcement. As expected, on Monday morning, he announced that he would be running as an independent candidate, leaving the Democratic primaries. And I watched that whole speech, which was about 50 minutes long, but I'm just going to present to you just 3 minutes of clips to give you a sense of the overall theme of it, like how he was positioning his run, what he saw as his strengths as a candidate, and what he wanted to do for the country. So I got these clips from the PBS NewsHour. They have the whole 50-minute speech on their YouTube channel. If you go to their channel, you won't find it, but if you search in YouTube specifically for RFK Jr.'s announcement speech on the PBS NewsHour, you probably find it. But let's have a flavor of that right now.
Today, as the corrupt powers have overtaken our government, the ranks of the dispossessed have swelled so that they not only include indigenous Americans and Black Americans and Hispanic Americans, they include tens of millions of people who live paycheck to paycheck in financial desperation. The dispossessed also include the legions of the chronically ill, of the addicted, the depressed, the 80% of our country that cannot afford a middle-class lifestyle. But the good news is that people like yourselves are finally fed up. Something is stirring in us that says it doesn't have to be this way. People stop me everywhere at airports, at hotels, and malls, on the street, and they remind me that this country is ready for a history-making change. They are ready to reclaim their freedom, their independence. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here to declare myself an independent candidate. For President of the United States. But that's not all. I'm here to join you in making a new Declaration of Independence for our entire nation. We declare independence from the corporations that have hijacked our government. And we declare independence from Wall Street, from big tech, from big pharma, from big ag, from the military contractors and their lobbyists. And we declare independence from the mercenary media that is here to fortify all of the corporate orthodoxies from their advertisers and to urge us to hate our neighbors and to fear our friends. And we declare independence from the cynical elites who betray our hope and who amplify our divisions. And finally, we declare independence from the two political parties. And the corrupt interest that dominate them and the entire rigged system of rancor, of rage, of corruption, of lies that has turned government officials into indentured servants for their corporate bosses.
I thought that was an effective speech. He's going with a populist message similar to that of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, which is that the vast majority of us are being disenfranchised and oppressed by the corporate domination of the two-party system, and we need to somehow break free of that. He was tying in this freedom from corporations and from the two-party system with the overall theme of his Declaration of Independence from that whole system and from the Democratic Party in particular, as well as, of course, the resonance with the Declaration of Independence. He gave the speech in Philadelphia, which is where the Founding Fathers originally met to produce the Declaration of Independence and then later on to compose the American Constitution. So he's tying it all in with this theme of independence, his independence from the parties, our independence from corporate domination, and the independence that the founding figures of this country were seeking. I don't think he has much chance of winning this election, as I said last week, primarily because of the way the Electoral College works. And you can look back at that show to get my argument about that. And I think probably in next week or a near upcoming episode, I'm going to be talking more about the Electoral College. But I don't think he has much of a chance of winning. But I do think that he has the right message. He has the right message for our time and how people are feeling. Let's look at one of his campaign ads to see how he's continuing to hit on this theme. It's not a new thing for him. He's just slightly altering the way he's presenting it. This is from when he was running as a candidate in the Democratic primaries, and it's still up on his website, or at least it was as of this morning. Let's give a listen. Here, what he's doing is he's drawing on the associations of the Kennedy family name and how that brand is still associated with the sense of hopefulness and bringing the people together, bringing the unified people together to work for something better.
What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
Every nation has a darker side, and the easiest thing for a politician to do is to appeal to our hatred and our anger and our bigotry and greed and xenophobia and all of the alchemies of demagoguery. My father and my uncle had a vision for America, a vision of racial harmony, of prosperity for all Americans, of peace in the world, and of honest government. Their lives were tragically cut short, and America took a different path. Yet the possibility they foresaw is still alive, the America that almost was and yet may be. I've been fighting corporate corruption my entire life, but I understand that today the problem is much larger than a few crooked individuals. The problem is a system that no longer serves the people, and a people who are so divided and so fearful that they are easily ruled. It's time to unlearn the reflexes of fear and blame and find ways to unify ourselves and turn our country around. I won't pretend to you that it will be easy, but I know what it will take. My father said it: love, wisdom, and compassion toward one another, and that's where we need to start. We will scale down the war machine and bring our resources home. We will rebuild our water systems, repair our roads, modernize our railroads, and clean up our environment. We will also clean up government and earn back the people's trust. We will end the secrecy, the censorship, and the surveillance. We will again be a fearless land of liberty.
The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it.
We will face honestly the darker parts of our history, the genocide, the racism, not to shame or blame or punish, but to repair as best we can in a spirit of compassion and kindness toward all. I'm inviting all of you to join me to create an America that we can believe in and be proud of again. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm running for President of the United States.
And finally, a very short campaign ad that he released on Wednesday, 2 days after his announcement on Monday in Philadelphia.
House Republicans continue to fight. The left is a cult.
I don't want to hear it from Republicans. We'll beat the out of them.
Time out.
I need you to report helping your party.
Anarchy across America.
Radical Democrats.
Republicans.
Yeah, I was fed up too. And that's why I'm running for president of the United States as an independent. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I approve this message.
So his ads are very slick, very well produced. And this last one was trying to tap into the feelings of voters rather than conveying a specific message. That feeling, of course, was the feeling that our political system is just chaotic, that there's divisiveness, and each of the major party candidates are just attacking each other. That we want to break free of all that. And then he has the peaceful scene of him walking in a forest to convey the idea that we can break free of what's going on and have this peaceful sense of calm. And he's the candidate who represents that, freedom from chaos and conflict, moving towards something better. I think he's trying to not only reach the very many people who do vote regularly but are not very happy with the two candidates that the major parties are presenting us for a choice. People don't like Trump and they don't like Biden. Even within their parties, there's plenty of people who don't like those candidates. He's trying to tap into not only the voters who are unhappy with them, but people who are kind of checked out of the political system and haven't been voting much, if at all, in the past, by appealing to them now as an independent who can make things different, who can make a dramatic change from politics as usual. So let's take a look now to see how those themes might resonate. A poll from Echelon Insights conducted last month, that is in September, shows that 69% of the public thinks that the country is on the wrong track and that political corruption is one of the public's top 4 concerns in this upcoming election. Another poll, this time from Reuters Ipsos, shows that 1/4 of the public, and that includes 37% of independents, think that neither major party are going to address this issue of political corruption. Even so, the public seems unusually motivated to vote in 2024. The Echelon poll shows that 70% of the public say that they're extremely motivated to vote, and 15% say they're very motivated, for a combined total of 85% of the public extremely or very motivated to vote in next year's election. So even though people think that the country's on the wrong track, they do have the intention of voting to try to change things. And if Kennedy can present himself as the change candidate, he has a good chance of at least getting a lot of support, if not winning the election. So how is he doing in this environment so far? Let's go back to that Ipsos poll. They asked a question specifically about Kennedy, and it shows his overall favorability rating at a combined 48%. That is, look at the top 3 rows on the chart on the screen, and if you add them together, you get to 48% of the public viewing Kennedy in a favorable light. His combined unfavorability rating, that is the next 3 rows down, is 37%. The other 14% of the public still hasn't heard of him. This compares very well, though, to Biden and Trump's ratings, both of whom have 40% favorability rating, which is 8 points less than RFK Jr., versus a 56% unfavorability rating, 19 points higher than RFK Jr.'s unfavorability. And that includes a 38% very unfavorable towards Biden and 42% very unfavorable for Trump. RFK Jr.'s very unfavorability rating is only 16%. As to how he performs against Biden and Trump in a matchup, when the matchup is just Biden versus Trump, they're about evenly matched at 35% each, with 11% saying they'd vote for some other candidate. When you bring RFK into the picture, he steps right into that someone else lane, taking 14% bringing Biden down to 31% and Trump down to 33%. So he takes a little from each. My assessment is that RFK has a good chance of shaking up this race. We don't know how things are going to play out, but I think he has a much better chance of shaking up politics as usual as an independent candidate than he would have had as a Democratic candidate. Of course, his chances of getting the Democratic nomination were slim, just like his chances of winning the presidency is slim. But now he can reach a much larger audience and potentially bring them into the system as voters in a way that's calculated to disrupt the business as usual and send those two major parties a message that things need to change. Now, whether that will be effective or not, who knows? I don't think he's going to win, as I continue to say. So I think he has a chance of shaking things up, although not to win. Remember, Ross Perot back in 1992, he got 19% of the popular vote, which was very good for a candidate outside of the two major parties, but he didn't get a single electoral vote. So that's the big challenge. But I could be wrong. You know, the way things have been the last 10 years in our politics, and I think that's because our economic system has been so difficult for people and getting worse. I think politics has been shaken up a lot by the underlying feeling that people have that the government is not addressing their concerns, neither party is addressing their concerns, and we need to do something different. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Trump election, with the Sanders candidacy. All these kinds of things have been out of the blue, and they've done much better than anyone would have expected because people are restless, people are unhappy. So who knows what's going to happen or how things are going to develop from here on in. I expect that both of the major parties now are going to be throwing a lot of dirt at him and trying to dampen down that any enthusiasm or favorability that Kennedy might have. It used to be that the Republicans and those on the conservative side were trying to build up JFK because they thought he was going to hurt Biden in some way, discourage Democratic voters and give them a sense that Biden's even worse than they thought. They could have had someone better than Biden. So anyway, they were promoting Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but now they're going to be throwing mud as well as the Democrats and the media. The media has not been very friendly to RFK so far. I find that they mischaracterize a lot of his views, although sometimes they're accurate. But some of the things they throw against him, the media in particular, how they describe him as, for example, a conspiracy theorist who thinks the CIA was involved in the assassination of his uncle, John F. Kennedy Jr., as well as his father, Robert F. Kennedy. They see that as conspiracy theory. Of course, it is a conspiracy theory when you think the CIA was part of the conspiracy to kill one or the other or both of them. But I don't think the public is on board with the idea that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman in the case of the RFK assassination. I certainly don't believe that. I think a very good case can be made that former CIA Director Allen Dulles was the mastermind behind the JFK assassination in 1963. So conspiracy theory, as though this has no credibility, I think a lot of people are suspicious, at least, of the official narrative and not going to discount the son of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the nephew of JFK, simply because he thinks something else was going on. On other counts, I'm going to look into them as well. I think, the whole anti-vax thing and some of the other things he's been accused of, like anti-Semitic and anti-Asian rhetoric, I don't think they're presenting that very accurately. But let's not, I'm going to look at that in future shows. But let's look today simply at whether the chief argument that they pose against him being taken seriously is that they call him an anti-vax zealot. He's an anti-vaxxer. He's against vaccines. Is that going to hurt him in the upcoming election? Let's take a look at those polls again. What we see is that when the Ipsos poll asked people whether they're more or less likely to support a candidate who questions the safety of vaccines, and that would be, of course, RFK Jr., the public splits 50-50. 50% say they are much more or somewhat more likely to support such a candidate. while 50% say they're somewhat or much less likely to support them. So the effect of the accusation that he challenges the safety of vaccines is mixed, and a lot's going to depend on how that issue fits in with the overall set of issues and the impression he makes on the public going forward. In addition to his specific views and the attacks against him that are being presented in a future show, I want to look into where his money is coming from. You saw those ads. You saw how slickly they were produced. That costs money. Where's money coming from? According to an article in Politico, they reported that his campaign is being buttressed by a super PAC, American Values 2024. Now, remember, a super PAC is a way of getting around the campaign donation limits placed on an individual candidate like RFK. The American Values 2024 super PAC was launched in the same month as the Kennedy campaign, and apparently it's dedicated to supporting just his campaign. Now, as long as they don't coordinate directly with his campaign, they're allowed to spend that money independently, and they can collect a lot more money from big donors than he can himself. Political reporter Jessica Piper found that as of July, about 5 million of the super PAC's $16 million in receipts came from one, quote, conservative donor, end quote, Timothy Mellon. I assume he's of the Mellon banking family. And another 4.5 million came from billionaire Gavin DeBecker. So the headline in that article from July 31st, 2023 is RFK Jr. Super PAC got more than half its funds from GOP mega donor. That's about 60% of its campaign funds from just two people. Who are these guys? I want to look into that further. I'm not sure yet. Don't know whether there's something to be worried about or not, because it may simply show that he has cross-party support. On the other hand, relying on too much money from very rich people is a red flag to me, and I'm sure it should be to you as well. So how do I feel about this in general? I think he's got a professional-looking campaign. I think he's worth supporting. I'm going to support him as a candidate, at least unless things shake out in a different way and somebody else looks like they could do better. Now, I do my own views of things of the political world in general are more closely aligned with those of Cornel West, but I'm not looking at this as a chance to choose an avatar to represent my views in the public sphere. What I'm really looking for is which of these candidates has the most potential for making a good impact, that is a positive impact on our political system as it is now. Because I do think things need to be shaken up and moved in a different direction. I'm not sure how to achieve that, but if in my small way I can support somebody that has a chance of doing that, I'm going to do that. And I think RFK Jr. does have a better chance than West of shaking things up. Now that they're both independents, I think he's going to overshadow Cornel West as a candidate. Now that both Cornel West and RFK Jr. are independent candidates, I think anyone looking for an independent candidate is going to look towards Kennedy more likely than West. His name is important. The money, he's got a lot more money, and West has not shown himself to be a very adept candidate with good political instincts, in my opinion. I think in leaving the Green Party, he showed he seems very fickle. You know, it makes him seem indecisive and fickle, like he's just jumping from one horse to another. Of course, he started out with the People's Party, then he jumped to the Green Party. Now he's jumping in out of the Green Party as an independent candidate. I was willing to support him because I thought his candidacy could help build the Green Party as an alternative political party, which is what we need, is a strong alternative party. Nothing else on the horizon is, at least on the left, is presenting itself as comparable to that. Maybe we need a whole nother political party. Is RFK going to offer that? Not so far. And I don't know that I would support it if it did. I'm not sure what kind of positions it would have. But since Cornel West is not trying to promote an alternative party, not building anything to last beyond his campaign. I don't see any point in supporting him any longer. Kennedy, on the other hand, what my support will be, just paying attention to him and giving him some airspace on this podcast video series, insofar as it reaches some people that may be, willing to give a listen to what I have to say, maybe even donate a little money to him. But beyond that, I don't have a lot to offer. But what I do have to offer right now, I'm more inclined to place my chips on RFK Jr. than on Cornel West or on Biden or on Trump. Of course, Biden and Trump. Biden represents the status quo, just more of the same. I don't think things are going in a good direction. I don't think Biden's going to change things dramatically. Trump, I think he could change things dramatically, but for the worse, even worse. So right now, I think RFK Jr. is the best bet out of all of them. Final word. The big news this week, of course, was the attack of Hamas on Israel. And just because I haven't spoken a lot about that, I don't mean to convey the impression that I don't think what happened there is important. I do think it's a very important development, and it's liable to shake up things around the world, could lead in a very bad direction. I just don't think I have a lot to contribute to that topic. I will say this, that in my opinion, the continued faith in the effectiveness of violence as a means to settle problems between human beings is way overrated. I think that faith is not only something held by Hamas, but also the current government of Israel and our own government here in the United States as well. They all believe that violence, more violence, is going to settle things where a little less violence didn't in the past. I think this is misplaced. I don't see in history, very rarely has violence led to better outcomes. It usually leads to worse outcomes over the long haul, especially. On the other hand, throughout my adult life, these many decades now, I have tried to work for a better world using only nonviolent means, that is, rational discourse and organizing people and trying to reach people one way or another. That doesn't seem to be terribly effective either. Let's put it this way. Violence seems to make things worse faster than nonviolent activism can make things better. But I still see violence as making things worse, not better. And so I'm going to stick with the nonviolent course, the activism, continue to be active. I'm not discouraged in spite of what I see. I'm going to continue to look for the best possible path forward in the situation as it evolves and changes over time. I hope you'll stick with me on this journey and come back. Hope you make comments on my videos so I can get some feedback, maybe get some other perspectives on what I've been talking about. Consider what you have to say, especially if you're in sync with the idea that we need to find ways to move forward. The presidential candidacy, the presidential election, is a prime opportunity to reach people that aren't often paying attention to politics. So that's why I'm kind of hinging my show on this right now. Next week, I'll probably have an interview with somebody who's written a book recently about the Electoral College, and specifically about the indictments against Donald Trump having to do with his attempts to subvert the count of the Electoral College in the 2020 vote. So again, I'll be dealing with presidential politics, but in a slightly different way. But going forward, I'm going to continue to follow the presidential races, maybe occasionally veer into other topics. I hope you'll continue with me. As always, if you've watched this far, you've gotten something out of it. So please like, share with others, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you know when I drop another, which is usually every weekend on Friday or Saturday. Thanks for watching, and hope you come back. Peace. Take care. Bye.
With ease, I see the chains are breaking. We gained our focus, the moves we're making will prove to determine our self-worth as a passenger on this vehicle Earth.